If the song Catallena by Orange Caramel was a person and walked into the 2019 Met Gala under Susan Sontag's conditions, it would not be considered camp. I think most people who are not in tune with the world of art, fashion, and design will have discovered the term camp from the 2019 Met Gala, where the theme was Camp Notes on Fashion. This is when I first found out about this term, and I remember seeing it all over social media. So many discussions about the outfits celebrities wore to this gala, and how so few of them seemed to be actually camp. From that point forward, it seemed like the pop culture world at large had a new term to use for anything that is bad, but questionably bad. If it's not objectively bad with no intention, perhaps there is a hidden purpose behind it, perhaps it is camp. So what is camp is the question that I want to bring up today, and one which I think is very complex by nature. The notes aspect of the 2019 Met Gala theme holds a very special weight, referring to Susan Sontag's 1964 essay, Notes on Camp. Sontag's work was the direct inspiration behind this theme. If the song Catallena by Orange Caramel was a person and walked into the 2019 Met Gala under Susan Sontag's conditions, it would not be considered camp. Susan Sontag's notes about camp aesthetics involves realizing a serious topic through a sense of humor, and that's exactly what Catallena seems to be doing. Kind of. We don't really know, but you can assume through the storyline of the video that a deeper message is being expressed here. It fits that condition for what is camp, but notably misses another significant criteria. Sontag's essay outlines that the pure examples of camp are unintentional, they are dead serious. Was Catallena intentional? Again, we don't really know that for sure, but I would wager that Catallena is definitely not unintentionally ridiculous. I would argue that it was made with ridiculousness in mind, so it's not camp in this way, or at least not entirely. It doesn't fit this criteria. Sontag also describes camp as something that is attempting to be great but fails miserably in doing so. A hallmark of the camp aesthetic comes from the dissonance between what the artist had originally intended to make and what the end product ultimately was, or what it was received as, which is a far cry echo of the greatness that the artist was intending it to be. Under Sontag's conditions, camp aesthetics are enjoyed in the wake of a product's failure. It's good because it's awful is the mantra here, right? I would argue that Catallena definitely does not fit this narrative. Maybe some people would argue that the song fails at what it was trying to do, but I think the vast majority of people who listen to this song recognize it for what it is. What's more, Catallena is often heralded as a very thoughtful and significant release in K-pop's history. It's ridiculous, it's outrageous at times, but that does not make it bad. Catallena feels way too intentional and deliberate to be capable of being considered actually camp under Sontag's conditions. It is not a pure example of camp aesthetic because it was seriously unserious in the end. It was received by audiences in the way that it was intended to, which runs counter to Sontag's description. The end product of something that is truly camp has to be received in a way that the artist didn't intend it to. So, if Catallena is not an example of camp in K-pop, what is? To do that, we'd have to find a song or release that intended to be great, but in the end was not. That is quite a difficult thing to do, as music and style is subjective from person to person. If not Catallena, then how about Sticker by NCT 127? I personally would find time to defend this song. I think the concept is there and I can appreciate it for what it is, but the general reception is that it's not a good song, that it missed the mark in some way, and that was unintentional. In interviews before the album was released, NCT expressed how they and the production team wanted to show a different side to them as a group, and I don't think they were intending people to hate it as much as they did. People have slowly started to come around to this song, but there's a significant crowd who has made up their minds that it will continue to be a horrible song in their eyes forever, right? So it loosely fits the narrative of being unintentionally bad in the eyes of the audience, but we have to also consider Sontag's other condition. Is Sticker trying to realize something through a sense of humor? I don't know. I think the space cowboy concept and the nature of the music fits this condition. Sticker is a song about wanting to become like a sticker and stick with the subject of the song, and I suspect the space cowboy concept and inclusion of the LED lassos may also suggest that they want to lasso the person they like into their life. I don't know. It's unrelated, but it can represent the concept of the song if you put your mind to it, but it's quite an obscure connection. I think the music video in combination with the sound of the song, people were both shocked and also found the end product to be somewhat humorous. If you listen to the vocals and watch the performance, NCT is, quote, dead serious. They're not exaggerating in their performance for this song. Their stage presence and vocal delivery is the same as any other song in their catalog. So again, we're in extremely subjective territory, but I think Sticker by NCT 127 is the closest thing we have to something that is actually camp in the world of K-pop. I want to try and tie this discussion back to the ground by saying that, in my opinion, camp is quite an elusive concept. Finding something that is genuinely camp or purely camp under Sontag's essay outline is very difficult. Camp is largely, almost entirely subjective, as any given work of art cannot possibly be interpreted in the same way universally. This is why and how I think the term camp has been co-opted by mainstream culture since the Met Gala in 2019 to explain some of the more outrageous moments in pop culture. The same goes for K-pop. The number one defense of Queen Card, especially, is that it was camp, when in reality, I personally wholly disagree with that. Queen Card was received in the way that G-Idol intended for it to be received. It was very well thought out, in the same way that Catallena was. There's a general understanding that these songs executed their intended concept perfectly, right? Which does not make it camp in the eyes of Susan Sontag, which brings me to a more complex dynamic in the world of what is camp. Several other figures in the art world have since disagreed with Sontag's outline, suggesting things that are camp can be intentional and so on. So in the end, it depends on who you're asking or what framework you're using. So there probably is an understanding of camp aesthetics that incorporates intentionality that considers Catallena camp. But there's also an understanding that considers it not camp because of its intentionality. So back to the question, what is camp in K-pop? To me personally, it is nothing when you really think about it, or it is everything. If you're able to incorporate the contradicting viewpoints from figures in the art world, camp can be any and everything depending on perspective or depending on your understanding of the world. No matter how intentional a product is, there's always going to be at least one person who sees an end product as a failure. This video is camp technically in that way. If somebody disagrees with me, it's not because I did a bad job, it's because this video is camp. Camp is such an expansive topic with no end, in my opinion, but this is what I think. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts on this, anything to add, definitely let me know what you think. Yeah, I think that's all from me, my understanding of camp aesthetics. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time.